This today's session is all about vSphere 7. What's new in vSphere 7? And I don't want to steal any thunders from by introducing Sandeep, and Nitin. They are the product owners. I let them introduce themselves. And over to you, Sandeep and Nitin. Just one more thing. If you have any questions, do post your questions in the Q&A window. We have a panelist. Our panelists would actually try to answer all your questions in the Q&A window. And we'll try to answer all your queries there. Right. So over to you, Sandeep and Nitin.
Thanks, Ravinder. Hey guys, thanks a lot for taking time for this session. I'm Sandeep Byreddy. I'm the product manager for vCenter, and I have my colleagues Nitin Nagoria and Nitin Nagoria here. So Nitin Agrawal, you want to quickly introduce yourself and hand over to Nagoria?
Hi everyone, I'm Nitin Agrawal. I am product manager for vSphere, and we work very closely with Sandeep. So in fact, Sandeep is our manager, and that's all about me.
Hey guys, this is Nitin Nagoria here, and I also work in the vSphere product management group. It's been a while since we are working with VMware and particularly working on vSphere. So yeah, I mean, we are going to have a good session on the vSphere hopefully today. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. And who's presenting?
I will be presenting, Ravinder, to begin with.
So do you want to share your screen and we get started then?
Yes, let me just share my screen. Okay, so I hope you can see my screen.
Loading now. Yes, it is. The screen is visible. So Nitin and to the presenters, if you can be a little closer to the mic so that the audio comes out clearly for everybody.
Is it better?
And we're also, yeah, it is better now. We're also recording this session, and we intend to post this session on YouTube later on the VMUG Delhi YouTube channel.
Perfect. Thanks, Ravinder. Thank you so much. So, hello guys. I hope everyone's safe and healthy at the home place. It's working from home. That was more essential in this time. So the features that we have shipped 7.0 arguably is one of the most feature-packed version that we have released on the vSphere side, and we have put years of efforts on making this a successful release. And I mean, you would be surprised to see the number of features that we have packaged. So for the ease and purpose of this session, we have just broadly categorized these features into four buckets: vSphere lifecycle, the intrinsic security, application acceleration, and the vSphere with Kubernetes. But it is not to give you any idea that number of features are less. It's just that for the ease of this session, we have just categorized them into four big buckets, and they are really big buckets. But the number of features that you want to see, that you will see, will really amaze you in the 7.0. So these are the four big buckets. vSphere with Kubernetes, I think one of the most marketed features of vSphere 7.0. With 7.0, we are now bringing the Kubernetes containers on the same stack where your VMs have been working so far. You can have a seamless management capability for your VMs and your containers. So this is pretty amazing. We have received very good feedback from our customers so far, and we are just excited to make more continuous improvements on this. So this is one of the key features that we have released in 7.0. vSphere Lifecycle Manager. We have had so many issues, complaints, and whatnot with vSphere Lifecycle Manager, and so you decided that we want to really turn things around for our customers. We want to make sure that lifecycle management experience is really very seamless, very easy for our customers. And this is just a first release. We are going to make continuous investment into this and making sure that the lifecycle is something really cool to work with. So we'll just walk you through what we have shipped in 7.0. Then comes the intrinsic security. The security in vSphere stack was never more paramount and never more involved than it is in 7.0. My colleague Nitin will actually walk you through what exactly we have done as part of the security on the vSphere stack. And then application acceleration. The more and more use cases with the graphics and the AI ML are coming up, so we are also not behind the industry. Our vSphere offering is actually at par with what are the use cases demanding from vSphere. So you would see that we have made substantial jump in this area as well. We have addressed many use cases with the application acceleration, particularly Bitfusion acquisition that we made. I'll not steal the thunder. I'll let Nitin Agrawal walk you through what we are doing in that space. But this is something that we really are proud of, doing a lot of work in this and continuing to do the good work in this area. So please feel free to stop if you need to ask any question, and we can have an interactive discussion as we go forward. So to begin with, again, I am not scaring you with this picture, but this is, if I really have to, draw a big picture of what are the various features that we have released. These are all the new features that are coming out only in vSphere 7. This is spread across the 4 buckets that we have talked about, and maybe a little more than that. But as I said, arguably 7.0 is by far the most feature-packed release that we have ever released. So we are still continuing to hear from our customers more and more on this each of these release. And yeah, I mean, the product team, the engineering team internally are really proud to have this release delivered with these many features.
Nitin, if you don't mind me jumping in between, this looks like a very busy slide, and there's so many features, right? There's a lot of excitement about all the features. Are you going to cover all of these in today's session, or
no? So we will walk through. As I said, this is the bird's eye view session. If there is any particular interest in any particular area, we can have a follow-up session on this. But we are not going to spend time in each of these. What we have curated the session with the selected features and making sure that we actually advertise all the prominent features that we have released for 7.0. We know the time limitations, so we're hoping that we will still be able to manage the time limit.
Awesome.
Cool. Okay, so with that, let's get started. So vCenter 7 upgrade. With this release, we actually have converged all the PSCs into single PSC. If you have any multiple PSCs running in your environment, or if you have a vCenter running on your Windows server, we are also offering. We have a migration tool available which actually consolidates all your external PSCs and Windows vCenter server into a vCenter server appliance. It is an intelligent tool. It understands the deployment of your PSCs. It consolidates all of them into the single one. So now you have a single server appliance that also acts as PSC and as vCenter server. So basically, there is so much complexity managing and deploying these various deployment topology. We are making everything now seamless. Everything from management perspective has really gone very simple. All you have is one single vCenter server, and that server acts as PSC and the vCenter server as well. We really hoping that with this simplification, the management of the vCenter deployment, vCenter topology is going to be super easy for our customers. It will not really be a painful process as it used to be. We have heard from few customers that it is really painful when your environment is very large. So with this simplification, things will really turn out to be pretty easy for customers. There are many combinations when they had multiple Windows or Linux vCenter servers, and then there are external PSCs, maintaining, managing, patching. Everything was very time consuming. So we thought we really wanted to put in some quality effort on this and making sure that it is simplified, and it is simplified to the best of our imagination. Now that we have done work here, we're hoping that customers would really love this new simplification that we are offering with vCenter server appliance. The scalability enhancement that we have made, we continuously make enhancements in this area. This release is no difference. Now, the number of hosts per vCenter used to be 2,000 prior to 7.0, and now it is scaled up to 2,500. The number of powered on VMs per vCenter used to be 25,000 before 7.0, and now it is scaled up to 30,000 VMs. And these are only the powered on VMs. You can still host more VMs if they are in power off state. The link mode vCenter server earlier used to be 15 per SSO domain. It continues to be 15 per SSO domain, but the number of hosts in those domains used to be 5,000. Now we have scaled it up to 15,000. The powered on VMs in the linked mode domain, linked mode session can go up to 50,000. Used to go up to 50,000. Now it can go up to 150,000. So again, these are various enhancements that we have made in 7.0, and these are by far pretty good enhancements that we have we really have challenged the limits of the stack, and we have come thus far. Again, there are some latency improvement that you can see on the screen. I possibly won't really want to go in detail everything, but the idea of this session is to making sure that let you know what are the new enhancements that we have made in this scalability part. And I think with these, customers are really happy, is particularly in the larger environment where they deploy multiple thousands of hosts and then multiple hundreds of vCenters. I think this is really going to help them manage and scale down their deployment of vCenters. So that's about the scalability enhancement. Any question before I move forward? Am I going fast, Raminder? I'm slow. I need to slow down.
Yeah, I think the pace is okay. So Nitin, this session is in a webinar mode. The questions are going to come in the Q&A window, and I hope the other panelists are looking at and answering those questions in the Q&A.
Sure.
We will answer the questions, anything coming Q&A window.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So vCenter server profiles. So one of the initiatives to provide a faster time to value when a customer deploys vCenter. Now, how it works. So basically, when a customer deploys a new vCenter, what we observed is most of the times most configurations remain common. There are a few configurations that changes, but by and large, a large number of attributes remains common across the vCenters. So we thought, how can we really help our customers, come up with provide them faster time to value once they deploy the vCenter. And so this allows our customers to actually, create a golden configuration template and deploy it across any new or any other vCenter that they are deploying. So this brings up the vCenter in very fast, very small amount of time. All the configurations which are standard configuration are deployed with this template. You can templatize them, and then you can repeatedly deploy them across various vCenters. This includes the network configuration, authentication configuration, management configuration, all the various configurations that you can export. There are command line utilities available that you can use to export and then import. You can have your dedicated automation through Ansible or DCLI or PowerShell. These are the tools that you can use to with which these new commands work. All these new features, list, export, validate, and import, these are available as RESTful APIs. So you can use them. You can create a dedicated automation. You can transfer the configuration from one vCenter to the other vCenter runtime, and making sure that our effort is to make sure that you spend minimal time configuring on your new vCenter, and it gives you value immediately as soon as possible. So this is where our effort is. We are making good effort here. We continue to make more efforts as we approach the new release for 7.0 stream. But this is just a beginning, as I said, and there are many such features that you will see coming across, where your efforts are optimized, your time to value is improved, and making sure that your vCenter gives you value, tremendous value in a very short amount of time. Any question before I move forward? Anyway, there's one question in the panel, so yeah, I think it's answered by the panelists, so I'll keep moving. Content library. So with content library, we are now providing a full-fledged version control system. So any check-in that you do, any changes that any of the privileged user is doing, you can trace it back, you can restore the changes, you can make new changes, you can create a complete version hierarchy, you can restore, you can patch the new VM with the new changes, anything and everything with the version control system that you can otherwise do is now available in content library. So that's something that our customer, we hope that it will really help our customers manage their content VM templates very easily. Any unneeded change that they have ended up making, they can remove it. They can go back to the previous version. If there are changes they want to save, they can check in and make sure that it remains in the version hierarchy for a long time. So this is something that our customers really love. They have been asking us for quite some time. We are glad that we could finally deliver a version management system in the content library 7.0. vCenter server multi-homing. One of the repeated features requests that our customers have received is that they wanted to differentiate in the traffic. There were management traffic, and then there was monitoring traffic. There was multiple various type of traffic. They had traffic distinction, IP-based traffic distinction they wanted to make. So what we are doing from 7.0 is a multi-homing feature where we now allow 4 additional NIC cards in addition to the default NIC card. With these, you can write rules to make sure that you can divert the traffic appropriately. You can stream your traffic to a particular NIC depending on the traffic type. If it's, let's say it's a VROps traffic for monitoring, then you could change it to a different NIC card. If it's a management traffic, or if it's the protocol traffic, then you can change it to a different NIC card. So with this, we are actually making it easy for customers, for the user to manage their incoming traffic, and making sure they have their protocol traffic is dedicated to a particular NIC card. Their monitoring traffic is dedicated to a particular NIC card, and the bandwidth is not consumed in unnecessary traffic while it's being in the production environment. So that was about multi-homing. Skyline Health Advisor. So with 7.0, we are bringing in Skyline right in the console. It gives you all the necessary information in the console. If there is a new security patch update available, it lets you know about it. If it has the intelligence, it is very transparent. It tells you what are the data that is being transmitted to VMware as part of the log bundle. There are 90+ health categories, and it is allows you to enable the CP in the vCenter to get this capability. So basically, it's pretty much right in the console. All the controls that you need are available there, and it's very transparent system. So far, the feedback from customers have been pretty positive on this feature. So for us, and we are going to continue making more enhancements into Skyline Health Advisor. The saved search in the vSphere client. So now it's very easy to save your searches and repeatedly work around those searches, making sure that anything that you have done previously, you have the history also available for it. You can simply create a single string of search, allows you to see what are the various objects with that name, and you can save those search. So saved search is something that we thought would add good value to our customers, working style with our customer with the vCenter. One of the most possibly complicated, but then most sought after feature is Developer Center. So any action that you perform inside the vCenter, you can now capture the code for the same, which essentially means that anything that you otherwise do as an action, if you want to automate that, you can create the code for that. You can capture the code in 4 different languages: PowerShell, VRO, JavaScript, Go language, and Python. Anything that you can you can do from your command line, from your script. This script is available for you to capture and then run it as part of either Ansible or Puppet or any other automation tool that you might want to you may be using in your environment. And you can swiftly switch across various languages like PowerShell or Python, depending on what gives you the most comfort. But this is a very cool feature that helps our developers automate their routine tasks very easily. vSphere Lifecycle Manager. So let me just walk you through a quick video before I actually give you more idea of what we have done as part of the Lifecycle Manager. So can you hear the audio? Is audio, Raminder, audio, can you?
Yes, Nitin, I can hear the audio.
Hi, welcome to this video. I would like to discuss vSphere Lifecycle Manager, or VLCM, a new feature that we introduced with vSphere 7. VLCM consists of a comprehensive toolset that allows you to update your ESXi hosts far more easy and far more efficiently. The foundation of VLCM is its declarative model, a desired state model which enforces ESXi host consistency across the cluster, not only for ESXi build versions or updates, but also for optional vendor add-ons and firmwares and drivers. Talking about firmwares and drivers, We integrate with selected hardware vendors, so OEM customization is another really strong feature of VLCM. No longer do customers need to wait for the vendor to release a new custom ISO, but we are now able to automatically download the vendor add-ons and slipstream it into the single cluster image. For customers that are configuring new clusters, we also adjusted the quick start workflow. So you can now use VLCM and the desired state model from the start when configuring new clusters. The last but not least is the automatic checks, especially important when using HCI infrastructure, a hyperconverged infrastructure using VMware vSAN. We will now provide you not only with a check if ESXi hosts and all the devices adhere to the desired state model, but we will also check storage controller firmwares against the HCL. This video focuses more on how to get started with VLCM and its desired state model. The desired state model, the single image that we use for that desired state, consists of a ESXi base image together with optional vendor add-ons and potentially also firmware and drivers that are not included in the vendor add-on. Let's have a look in the UI how to get started with VLCM. Looking at the vSphere client in vSphere 7, we have a new option which is Lifecycle Manager. This will bring you to the image depot. The image depot consists of the base version of ESXi and the potential vendor add-ons. Those are automatically downloaded in the image depot. Whenever vCenter server has no direct internet access, we can use the proxy server of vCenter server, or you can manually upload the bits. Looking at the cluster level and the update tab, we see that we now still have the baselines option and the image options. The baseline options being VUM, the vSphere Update Manager. Now we have an option here to manage with a single image. Whenever we click that, this is how we enable VLCM. Make sure that you meet the host prerequisites. So all hosts must run ESXi 7 or higher. You need to make sure that your host consists of the same vendor, and you need to have stateful host installations. We can now proceed with setting up the image. We'll choose a ESXi's base version and potentially a optional vendor add-on as well. In this specific case, this environment consists of Dell EMC hosts, so I want to make sure that I have that in my image as well. We can now save the image, and VLCM will check all the host compliances. Now we have finished the cluster setup. Let's see what options we have as well. So it is important to understand that we can import and export images. Exporting an image is as an ISO format, for example, comes in handy when you need to install new hosts. Also, it is really important to understand that at any given time you can edit the desired state, edit the image. So maybe when a new ESXi version is released, or in this specific case, I wanted to add the firmware and drivers add-on as well. So in my lab, I have the Dell Open Manage integration set up, and this is my repository for some firmwares as well. Now that I have set up the driver and the vendor integration, I can see some interesting things here. So this specific host, and looking at this specific device even, this is my storage controller, actually runs an outdated version when you compare it to the image. So I definitely need to remediate all the hosts. But before I do, I want to run a pre-check to make sure that everything is good, the cluster is healthy, and all the hosts are basically good to go for remediation. Now this process will take a while, and in the end it'll show you whether your cluster is healthy enough for the remediation with VLCM to happen. Luckily, we didn't have any pre-check issues found, so we can move ahead and remediate the cluster. When remediating, we can see the impact on the cluster and all the hosts. So it'll show you the number of hosts that are non-compliant to the image and how many hosts will actually be rebooted. if you dig in a little bit more, we can review the remediation settings. Now, Quick Boot is one of the options you might want to consider if you are remediating only the ESXi image, for example, because this will allow you to only reboot the vSphere kernel instead of doing a full host recycle. Now, this depends on whether you have firmware updates in your image as well, because obviously then it is required to do a full host cycle. But be sure to review this setting. It is disabled by default. Now, looking at all the hosts in the cluster and the remediation impact, you'll see that running VMs will be migrated, hosts will be put in maintenance mode, the image will be installed on the hosts, and it will exit maintenance mode once everything is done. Now, once we have reviewed everything, we feel comfortable with remediating, we can start it off. And while remediating, it depends on your desired state, how long that actually takes, and it can take a while. Once everything is done, we see that the image is now in compliance with all the ESXi hosts, and we can check the last pre-check results of the last remediation results. Do remember that you can change the desired state at any given time. And whenever you don't have set up that firmware and driver add-on, that is optional, you'll notice that you'll need to manually verify those drivers. This concludes our setup of VLCM.
My apologies for a little long.
Thank you so much for it.
It's good to actually walk you through the complete end-to-end demo. So with that, I think it's.
Sorry, I'm interrupting a little bit, but is there anything you can do to improve? A lot of people are complaining that the screen is a little blurry. Do you think you can change some resolution and maybe it can come out better? I can read the text, but I think the screenshots become a little bit blurry.
Is there a way I can change? I have never done it. I thought the Mac resolution is pretty good for such. Yeah. I have not done it before, so I really not sure if how do I do it.
The text right now is clear to me. I can see it very well. So let's move on.
Okay. Okay, so I think the video was really self-explanatory, and I thought it was good to actually walk you through, even though it was a little longer. But essentially, we are now talking about the cluster management instead of cluster lifecycle management instead of individual host management. The whole VLCM idea of VLCM is to making sure that your cluster is always the lifecycle events as cluster are really managed well. The firmware version, the ESXi version, the component version, the various driver device version from the vendors, everything is taken care of automatically. It creates a complete image and then it's deployed onto all the hosts under a particular vCenter on particular cluster. So basically, all your hosts under the cluster are always going to be at the same state, and that's the idea. We want to make sure the managing of the life cycle of your ESX host, or rather now we can say the life cycle of the clusters, and in turn the ESX host is going to be super easy, and I think working with it is going to be super cool if you really have experience in the tough days of managing the life cycle of Indian ESX host. So this particular feature is really going to make it super cool for you to manage the lifecycle events onto the ESXi host. As we must have monitored observed in the video, these are host firmwares from various vendor devices that are managed automatically. You can see it gets downloaded, it gets come up in the image automatically. Currently, it works with the native tool of Dell Open Manage and HP OneView, and then we also are going to integrate with a few other vendors in the upcoming days. The VCG HCL checks are done through the recommendation engine, and any unsupported drivers are there. It notifies you upfront, so there is no such risk that you are running now with the deploying of these VMs with these images onto your ESX host. And then topping onto everything is fully automatable. You have not only the GUI support, but you also have the REST API support for everything that you are seeing on the screen. That's our ongoing endeavor. Everything that we do through GUI, we want to make sure our customers also can do it through REST APIs, because vast user base of our vSphere is actually working day in day out with REST APIs. They have a lot of automation in place, and you want to make sure that we continuously help them on an ongoing basis. So REST APIs are available for almost everything that we build. In fact, we build APIs first and then we build the features. So that way we are really ahead in the game. So this was pretty much for the ASXI host. Similarly, we are not ignoring the vCenter. In fact, we have done some good work in 7.0, and we have pretty good solid plans ahead in subsequent releases. So now with the 7.0, you can discover, plan, and upgrade. Basically, what we are doing is we are now helping you upgrade your vCenter environment. We give you insights into how is your VMware environment wired, what are the various dependencies, the product version level, and then I'll tell you whether a particular product is compatible with the target vCenter version or not. Which means that this is the first step. We just want to make sure our vision is we want to make sure we give you all the necessary information in the console so that you can take informed decision when you are upgrading your vCenter. And it's a long way, we know, but then we are committed to it. We are making continuous update to that, continuous improvements into this feature. With 7.0, you now have the notification of the if any upgrade or update is available. You have the in-console notification that takes you into the workflow where you actually can download the update and then apply it to the vCenter. There is also something called as interoperability with the VMware products, where it tells you that if you want to move from version A of vCenter to version B of vCenter, is your existing VMware environment compatible to your version B of target B? Pretty much every VMware product goes through the vCenter, so we want to make sure we don't destabilize the environment once you upgrade the vCenter. So we are giving you that information right in the console, where you now know if I upgrade to vCenter version B, is there any dependency which gets broken due to this upgrade, this lifecycle event. So that information will be available to you right in the console. And pre-update check. Now, before you actually initiate your upgrade, you can run the pre-update check of vCenter, and it tells you whether if there is any incompatibility, if there is any problem that you want to rectify before you actually initiate the upgrade process of your vCenter. So these are a few features that we have delivered in 7.0, and as I said, the new releases are going to be even more feature packed with on the lifecycle management. Intrinsic security. From here, I think I'll hand it over to Nitin Agrawal. He has good command over it compared to what I do have, so I think I'll let him drive the session from here. Nitin, over to you.
Thanks, Nathan. I will share my screen. Hi all, I'm Nitin Agrawal. So from here onwards, we will make a journey towards security, then the vMotion and hardware acceleration, and then finally to the Kubernetes. So as you know, like VMware is committed towards the security, and we are incrementally doing this security enhancements to our products. So as a part of that, we heard a feedback on the certificate management. So many of you would have burned the fingers, right? And to answer that, we have built a capability for the certificate management in terms of APIs and in terms of providing the user interface. So as you can see now, we have a user interface where you can come and change the certificate. You can replace the certificate, which includes both machine SSL as well as VMCA root, right? So that way it is very easy for the admin to come here, see like what is the validity of the certificate and replace them. Apart from this, we have also reduced down the number of certificates that you need to manage now, right? So this we have achieved by removing the solution user. So now only the service account is required, and apart from that, you will be only managing the machine SSL and VMCA root certs. So rest all will be taken care by us, and we have reduced down all that complexity. Going to the next thing, we have now the security in the identification field is a big concern, right? As we are seeing, right, a lot of solutions in the financial and banking sectors, they are evolving, right? Now, if you have a single authentication, it is not suffice, because what if it get hacked, right? So it is very difficult. So how we can make it difficult? How we can make a hacker difficult for him to breach into our systems, right? So this is only possible having the multi-factor authentication. So what does it mean? Like you might be entering a password for your particular application authentication to log in. But after that, again, it will require another layer of the authentication for him to pass. So when such obstacles are presented in the user authentication journey, it will not be possible for a hacker to just go ahead and immediately access your system, right? Because the next authentication, you might be getting it on your mobile, the authentication code that you need to enter, and the hacker may not have that, right? So so to understand, identified that need, and as a part of that, we are providing the identity federations. So we are providing the OAuth2 and OIDC support here, where any ADFS environment you have, which is connected to AD, right? You will be able to integrate it with vCenter. And it is very simple. We are providing the user interface where you can come and provide the ADFS related details. And after that, whenever you will try to log in, right, it will use this authentication mechanism to authenticate you and allow you to enter into the system. So that said, whatever mechanism you are using to log into your laptop, you can use the same mechanism to log in now into the vCenter, right? So this has been enabled in the 7.0, and moving to the next part. Now again, adding up onto the security sphere, right? We took the another step forward, where we have provided the TPM 2.0 support. So what does this mean, right? So earlier, like most of this support was a part of 6.7, and where the most of the time the third-party vendors were involved into this process. But now in the 7.0 onwards, we have released the TPM 2.0, that is the Trusted Platform Module version 2.0. In this, what is happening is, the hardware, whenever it boots up, you need to know whether it is a secure boot or not. Because what happens if some admin comes and he installs some malicious software or driver, right, and which totally disrupts your security system, right? So you don't know what is going to happen in that side. Now, how to control this such kind of situations? The only way to control this kind of situation is to have the trusted ecosystem around this hard things. So it means that you will be using a hardware which is coming from our trusted chains. And secondly, we are using a TPM enabled server. So which means that it has some microcontroller where we can store our authentication details. And when the server boots, it is actually checking whether it is the secure boot enabled or not, right? So whenever you are integrated into the TPM, TPM has a interlock with vCenter server. It observes your boot pattern and it sends out that hash things to the vCenter server. And the vCenter server knows that, okay, in the past, this server has followed this particular security pattern. This is a particular hash about that. And it will try to match this hash against the recent boot that has happened in your environment. And if that matches, it will tell you on the report that this particular server is attested for the security, right? And if that fails, it will tell you in the report that this particular server is not attested for the security. It means that the admin can come to know there is some problem over here. He can take out this server from the vCenter server environment or do the needful from there. So these are the capabilities we have added in vSphere 7.0. So this is the entire workflow. This is the end-to-end integrated now. So what does this mean? You are using the trusted hardware coming from our trusted chain, and on top of that we have the TPM security, which enables you end-to-end security of the secured boot. Now moving further, I will move you now into the vMotion space. So this is where we have finished all the most critical security features, and we are moving towards the vMotion space now. So the vMotion feature is most common in the customer environment, and till 7.0 this vMotion was mostly using the cluster centric approach. So what does that mean? Let's say that you have the 3 or 4 hosts in your environment, right? And there is an imbalance with respect to the resource usage, right? So if there is a one host having the less consumption and another host where the consumption is high, the algorithm was trying to balance this resource consumption across the cluster, so that there is a equal usage of the resources across the host. But this may not be the optimistic solution. So what we observed is actually the algorithm can be enhanced towards the workload, right? Because it's a workload who needs the resources most, right? And how do we identify that the workload is happy with particular hardware or particular host, right? Because the hardware or the capabilities on a host might be much better suitable for a particular workload. So it makes sense to move this workload on that particular host where all the hardware requirements for that particular workload can be met much better, right? So we have introduced a term called VM happiness. So the algorithm now decides what is the happiness score of the VM, and on which particular host this happiness can be met and where the VM can be more happy. So according to that, now this improved algorithm tries to relocate the VM. So let me take you through the one demo, like what enhancements we have made. It is bit in technical, but you will try to understand like how it really impacts the user experience and how well it helps the VM workload to get vMotion. So let me share that.
Hi, thank you for joining me in this video.
Are you able to see my screen?
I'm Niels Agrawal.
Yes, Nathan.
Okay, perfect.
And I work for the Cloud Platform Business Unit at VMware. In this video, I would like to go over the vMotion improvements in vSphere 7. vMotion has been around for quite a while, and with workloads becoming larger and larger, we noticed customers weren't always comfortable using vMotion anymore because of a potential performance impact or a stun time, a switchover time that surpasses the 1 second. With vSphere 7 and the improved vMotion, we are looking to bring back all the live migration capabilities for large workloads as well. So let's have a look at what changed for vSphere vMotion. To understand all the foundational basics for vMotion, please review these blog posts as they will go into great detail on what is happening on the background. First of all, whenever a live migration using vMotion is running, we need to copy memory from the source to destination ESXi host. This is what we call the memory pre-copy phase. Now, whenever we are copying memory, we need to keep track of all the memory pages that are being overwritten by the guest OS. So this is all about us installing a page tracer and using that page tracer to monitor all the page fires. The page fire is basically that guest OS, that application running inside the virtual machine, trying to write to global system memory. But it can, because that is set to read only. So now it reaches out to VMM, the virtual machine monitor process. It'll write the memory to the local host memory, and in the same time call out the migrate module, the vMotion migrate module, mark that page as dirty. Dirty meaning the memory page is being overwritten by the guest OS, and we now need to replicate that page to the destination ESXi host. These are the basics. The key takeaway here is the page tracer installation and the page fire that we just described. Because in versions prior to vSphere 7, this is what happens on the background. We need to install that page tracer on each and every vCPU that is configured for that specific virtual machine. And stopping meaning that we are only taking microseconds, but in the end, depending on the number of vCPUs configured for a virtual machine, this could lead to serious performance impact. Now, all the vCPUs are setting the PTEs, the page table entries, basically the memory pages, to read-only access. Now, we need to stop the vCPUs, again, we are talking microseconds at the time, but we need to stop them for the page trace installation, but also for all the page firing happening for specific page tables on a vCPU. With vSphere 7, we changed that algorithm, because now no longer we need to stop all the vCPUs that are configured for a virtual machine. We just claim one, and that one vCPU will set all the PTEs, all the memory pages to read only, and it will process all the page firings. The other vCPUs are just working and doing computations for the workload running inside the virtual machine. So there's a lot less impact for the virtual machine. In the end, we do need to flush the TLBs on all vCPUs, but we do that on different timings instead of all at once. Another improvement that we did is that whenever we set the memory page to read-only, we do that on a 4K granularity. But what if we just set that read-only access on a larger granularity? This way we are far more efficient in setting read-only access for memory pages. And we are doing so in vSphere 7. This was all about the memory pre-copy phase, but we also have the stun time, the switchover phase. This is basically where all the memory, we reach memory convergence, so memory is all copied to the destination ESXi host, and we need to switch over. In the switchover phase, we send over a memory bitmap that is containing information about all the memory pages in use by the virtual machine. Now, we send over the last remaining page files in the bitmap, but also include all the information of the memory pages that are already replicated and copied over to the destination ESXi host. Now, looking at an example of a 24 terabyte virtual machine, in vSphere 7, we support 6 terabyte, but vMotion is already ready for future virtual machine sizings. Looking at a 24 terabyte virtual machine, we would have a bitmap close to 800 megabyte. Now, that could pose a challenge to transmit to the destination ESXi host in the stun time. Important to know that the stun time to us at VMware an SLA of 1 second exists. So we want to make sure that whenever we switch over a workload from the source to destination ESXi host, that will fit within 1 second. Now, looking at the size of this bitmap, we will also already take up seconds to copy over the bitmap, right? So with vSphere 7, what we did is no longer do we send over the entire bitmap, we compacted the bitmap to only include the information that we really need to be sent over during the switchover phase. Now, we cut that time from 2 seconds to mere milliseconds. Now, what does that look like from a performance view? So this is an example of a vMotion executed for a virtual machine running with a 72 vCPUs and a 512 gig of memory. We are running a HammerDB workload, and what we see whenever we initiate a virtual machine vMotion in 6.7, for example, in the tracing phase, so that is the page installation, page tracer installation and the page fires, we see a performance degradation in vSphere 6.7. And we see a stun time, which is where the vMotion ends in 6.7, of several seconds. Now, with vSphere 7, because of all the optimizations that we did, no longer do we see a performance impact during that memory pre-copy phase. Also noticeable is the stun time that is now still within 1 second instead of multiple seconds. And the overall vMotion time is a lot shorter than with previous vSphere versions. For everything vSphere 7 and a lot more information about vMotion and all the other capabilities and features, please visit this.
So that was about the vSphere's vMotion how it is helping how it is going to improve the overall DRS and vMotion actually. So not only to the vMotion now, right? So with the capability that we have of BitFusion, right? Since we have the BitFusion support underneath now, so any workload which is like which requires a BitFusion or the GPUs, right? GPU enabled workloads, we will be able to take care of these workloads as well. So we will be able to vMotions these workloads across the clusters. So imagine that you have a bunch of servers having the GPU, you can create a cluster out of it and you can provision your workloads over there. And this vMotion in the 7.0 will be able to take care of these workloads in the DRS enabled clusters. Apart from that, we have also added a support for direct path IOs for the PCI devices, and also we have implemented the initial placement DRS and HA algorithm, which is enhanced in the 7.0 version. Okay. So these are the few items which I have achieved, right? So mainly the emphasis we have given here is like if the customers who are planning to vMotion the bigger VMs, right? So because you take any sector, be it the banking, telecom, or financial, if you look at the sizes of the VM, the sizes of the VM have drastically increased. So probably in the earlier days we used to see like a 500 GB or up to 1 TB of VM, but now the sizes are really growing because of the sizes of the DB, because of the applications, because of the things they want to do, right? And with that increase in size, you also need underneath capability which can move these big VMs from one place to another with a minimal downtime and with less stun time as well. So as you have seen in the demo, we are able to enhance all these features. We have improved on all the stun time and the overall improvement towards the vMotion. So with that, you can move your SAP HANA workloads as well as the big Oracle workloads. Apart from that, right, so various financial and scientific workloads, they required a very precision time clock, right? And this was not possible till 7.0. In the 7.0, we have added a feature for the precision clock where any scientific workload or any financial workload where the time is really, really important and you need a precision time right to the millisecond level, right? We will be able to do that. So we are providing this sub-millisecond accuracy with the enablement of precision clock, and you can enable this configuration from the virtual hardware settings. Apart from that, right, so in the ML AI infrastructure, right? So this is a big leap because with the addition of the GPU enablement and with the capability of moving this huge VMs, right? We are stepping into this space. So any ML or AI workload, you can now provision into the vSphere environment, and you can rely on the vSphere reliability, availability, and the performance to give you the desired throughput, and which is really a game changer in this point of time, right? Because if you look at this landscape, now we have one platform which can serve you the Kubernetes cluster. You have one platform which can help you in the AI and ML because of the underneath Bitfusion capability, and you have one platform which can also take care of the big workloads like SAP HANA or be it the Oracle thing, right? So this is a really amazing infrastructure where we have consolidated and we have taken care of all these different user aspects at one place. Now going further, we will move into the Kubernetes space, right? So why the 7.0 release is so special? Because we have enabled the Kubernetes cluster into the vSphere. Now, what does this mean to the end customer, right? So as you might be knowing, right, so there are two personas which are emerging very strongly. So idea administrators was already there, which most of the time used to take care of like deploying the infrastructure, scaling the infrastructure, and ensure that the infrastructure is ready and available. But now the DevOps persona is coming very strongly. So most of the organization have the SREs and DevOps where they worry about like having their environment reliable, available, and they should be able to measure the latency, right? Now, how can we achieve or how can we support these both the personas together, right? Because at the one end you have the DevOps and SRE persona where they want to quickly build their system, they want to quickly deploy their system, and they want to quickly scale their system. So how the IT admin can provide these both the things together, right? Because you have the hybrid kind of environment over there. You have the traditional VMs also there, and these are the new SRE and DevOps persona which are building their apps on the Kubernetes or sometimes on the VM, right? right? So you need a platform where you can support both of these things, right? So how can we take care of that? So that's where VMware has provided a VMware Cloud Foundation, where not only you can manage and provision your VMs, but you can also provision your workloads in terms of Kubernetes, right? So let's see like how this has been done. So most of the time, right, now what is going to happen is with the vSphere, as you used to create a clusters, in a similar fashion you are going to create a namespace for the Kubernetes, right? Now, and you can assign this namespace to a particular business unit, right? So it can be your financial, it can be a financial unit, it can be your database unit, or it can be a development unit, right? You can create a one namespace for that, and inside that namespace you can provision all your Kubernetes workload and give it to them to manage it, right? Now how VMware has achieved it, and are there any performance impact because of this, because it is working on the virtualization layer? No. Why and how? So basically, if you look at the VMware, right? So what we have done is we have deployed the Kubernetes cluster on the ESXi layer. So earlier, if you want to enable the Kubernetes, mostly it was going to happen in the VM. But now the Kubernetes is going to directly run on the ESXi layer. And since we have the control at the scheduler algorithm, we are able to enhance the scheduling for the Kubernetes, which has helped us to run the Kubernetes much faster. And this is much faster compared to running on the bare metal in few situations. The overall performance improvement we have seen is almost close to 30%. And how we are able to achieve that? This is possible because we are able to control the scheduling algorithm. And that's a differentiating factor for the vSphere environment. Now, apart from this, since the Kubernetes cluster is directly running on the hypervisor, right? We are able to give you the give you the aspect of both the VM, where there is a isolation coming from the security aspect, as well as we are able to give you the user experience for the Kubernetes, right? So let's look at the demo, how we are able to do it, how the customers can provision both the VM as well as the Kubernetes cluster together, right? So let me switch back to the video.
I'm Michael West with VMware. This is an overview of Project Pacific. Project Pacific fundamentally changes how developers get access to vSphere infrastructure and how IT operations provides governance. Kubernetes is now part of vSphere and is referred to as the supervisor cluster. Kubernetes pods deployed on the supervisor cluster run directly on ESXi in a new container runtime that provides the security and performance of a VM with the small footprint and fast startup of containers. The supervisor cluster will run a service that allows development teams to provision their own Kubernetes clusters on demand. There are additional services to deploy traditional virtual machines and even third-party applications. Developers accomplish this with the same tools they use with any other Kubernetes application deployment. Okay, let's jump in and see how this works. We start with a single HA cluster containing 4 hosts. As you can see by the presence of the Kubernetes API service, we have already enabled Kubernetes directly on this cluster. We select Workload Platform and see a list of available namespaces. Namespace is an extension to the core Kubernetes namespace construct and allows the VI admin to attach policy that spans both vSphere and Kubernetes. All developer workloads run in the namespaces they are assigned. Our application platform team has requested resources for a new application the development team is working on. The IT operations team will create a namespace for them. The first thing we will do with our new namespace is to provide access to our application platform team by adding edit permissions for them. A Kubernetes role binding is created, and the platform team will now be able to create objects in the Kubernetes namespace. Users will be authenticated to the cluster using vSphere single sign-on. Our admin can associate vSphere storage policies to this workload. In our case, we will assign our gold disk policy. This will automatically create a Kubernetes storage class and associate it to this policy. Both resource and object quotas can be set for the namespace. We will set limits on CPU and memory. Each namespace is backed by a resource pool, and these limits are enforced there. Storage limits can also be set. These are enforced through Kubernetes storage class resource quotas assigned to the namespace. Finally, the admin provides access to the cluster by simply sharing the IP address of the master node with developers. This opens a web page that provides details on downloading the CLI. As a developer, we can select the appropriate link for our client environment. Checksum is provided to validate the download. We will use wget to download a zip file and then unzip to expand it. This installs the kubectl CLI and the configuration needed for the vSphere plugin that enables SSO authentication. Once that is done, the login command authenticates our user Fred through SSO and updates the local config file with the namespaces Fred has access to. We want to set our context to point to the t-shirt application namespace, so we execute the useContext command to set that. Let's validate that this is a running Kubernetes cluster by creating a couple of deployments. First, we will create a persistent volume. Our persistent volume claim YAML defines a volume that uses our gold disk storage class. Integration with the vSphere container native storage means that a VMDK with a lifecycle independent of any pod or VM has just been created. And we can see that volume bound to the claim. Our MySQL application YAML will reference that persistent volume claim to tell Kubernetes to mount a persistent volume on its pod. Data from that application will now survive a failure of the pod. Now that we have created our database deployment, we will create a Jenkins pipeline with application data persisted in that MySQL database. Now our platform team will use the Kubernetes service that is part of Project Pacific to do an on-demand deployment of a Kubernetes cluster. This will be based on open source Kubernetes image signed and supported by VMware. In just a few minutes, a running cluster is available. Our platform team can see all of the objects they have created, including the managed cluster created through the vSphere Kubernetes service. The operations team has a new expanded view of their inventory, organized by namespace. The Kubernetes managed cluster nodes are organized under a new cluster object with a cluster summary. The MySQL and Jenkins pods were submitted to the supervisor cluster. Pods deployed to the supervisor cluster are instantiated as serverless pods running directly on ESXi hosts. Serverless pods are a new container runtime that provides VM-level isolation and security with the lightweight resource consumption and performance of containers. With Project Pacific, developers can move at their desired velocity while the operations team can provide governance through a more collaborative vSphere platform.
Okay, so that was a brief intro about like how you can provision your Kubernetes cluster and how it will be realized in the vSphere and how you can manage it. Now, apart from this Kubernetes cluster, we are also providing the Harbor Marketplace integration, where user can directly take the deployment images from the Harbor Marketplace and they can directly deploy into their Kubernetes cluster. So again, this is a great capability and a great feature on the vSphere platform. So which gives you the illusion of running all the Kubernetes from all the marketplaces on a single platform, right? So I think that's all we had. I think we can move to the question and answer sections. Sandeep, over to you. Anything you like to add?
No, Nitin, I think you covered pretty much all the details. I guess that's what we have for today's session. And,
Right. Thank you, Sandeep, and thank you, Nitin, both the Nitins, in fact, for the wonderful presentation. So we'll just look at the Q&A session. I hope you answered all the queries. We don't have any unanswered questions. Um, okay. So, okay. So Pranay, over to you for the closing then.
Yeah, Raminder. So it was a nice session, and thanks Sandeep, Nitin, for your time you given to our community, and thanks everyone for joining here. And we were almost 150 participants joined here, and we'll share the this recording session with you all. If someone has missed this, definitely they can go through it again. And any question if you have, you can directly connect with us over the WhatsApp group, or you can email us at delhi@vmug.com.
Yes, so please do share the feedback if you have any comments, feedback, to all the participants, all the community members. We're all one group. So we welcome your feedback and we appreciate any thoughts that you have about the session or maybe how we can improve it. Just write to us at delhi@vmug.com and we definitely try to incorporate your inputs and thoughts there. Once again, we are grateful for everybody who joined in and to the speakers who took out the time. We want to thank all the panelists for coming in and presenting this wonderful session for us. And thank you all the community members for joining in. Look forward to more communication from VMUG Delhi. We plan to conduct more sessions. At least we are looking at a frequency of one session a month. And the future sessions, we want to make them more interactive. And plus also we want to bring in some sponsors on board and look at some giveaways as well for the future sessions. So once again, thank you everybody. Stay safe and stay healthy. Thanks again.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.